Walk into any supermarket meat aisle and you'll see it. Bold black labels, rustic fonts, and the magic words, Angus Beef. It sounds premium, even luxurious, but is it really the steakhouse level beef you think it is? Truth about supermarket Angus may surprise you and could change the way you shop forever. We'll count down 15 truths about Angus beef you don't want to miss. 15. How Angus became a marketing powerhouse. The Angus breed traces its origins to the Aberdeenshire region of Scotland, where small, naturally polled, hornless, black cattle were bred for their resilience and flavorful, marbled meat. In the 19th century, Scottish farmers exported Angus cattle to North America, where they quickly gained a reputation among ranchers for being hardy and efficient to raise. But Angus's transformation into a marketing juggernaut began in 1978 with the creation of the Certified Angus Beef (CAB) brand. The CAB program, launched by the American Angus Association, sought to differentiate Angus beef from generic supermarket cuts by creating an image of exclusivity and quality. Over time, Angus became synonymous with premium beef in the minds of consumers, so much so that other cattle breeds rarely received comparable marketing push. The real genius wasn't just in selling beef, it was in selling the idea that Angus was a cut above, regardless of USDA grade or how it was raised. 14. The Angus breed versus Angus brand. Here's where the first major misconception begins. Angus in marketing doesn't necessarily mean 100% purebred Angus cattle. Under USDA guidelines, beef can be labeled Angus if the animal meets certain physical criteria, most notably having a predominantly black hide and exhibiting Angus-like characteristics. This means a cow could be 25% Angus and still yield Angus beef according to labeling standards. Supermarket packaging rarely explains this distinction. Instead, it relies on the power of the name alone. For the average shopper, Angus suggests a specific lineage and quality level. But in truth, it's often a broad category encompassing crossbred cattle from large industrial feedlots. 13. USDA standards don't mean what you think. The USDA grades beef based on marbling, maturity, and other carcass characteristics, assigning labels like prime, choice, and select. Prime is the highest grade, with abundant marbling. Select is the leanest and least tender. The word Angus has no bearing on these USDA grades. You can find Angus beef in all three grades, prime, choice, and select. That Angus sirloin on sale might be USDA select, meaning it could be tougher and less flavorful than a non-Angus prime steak. The brand name doesn't override the grading system, it simply adds a marketing halo. 12. Certified Angus beef isn't the only player. Many people think all Angus beef is Certified Angus Beef (CAB), but CAB is just one brand. To carry the CAB seal, cattle must meet 10 strict carcass quality standards, such as modest or higher marbling, certain ribeye size, and no dark cutters, on top of being at least 51% Angus by appearance. However, most supermarket Angus products don't come from the CAB program. Instead, retailers may work with other Angus suppliers that use looser standards, some of which focus more on volume than quality. Without the CAB shield on the package, there's no guarantee the beef meets those premium criteria. 11th. Angus in fast food versus Angus in grocery stores. When fast food chains like McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's rolled out Angus burgers in the 2000s, they capitalized on the breed's premium reputation. But much of that beef was simply USDA choice or even select Angus, not the kind of high-end meat served at steakhouses. Supermarkets often follow a similar playbook. By labeling ground beef or budget cuts as Angus, they can command a price premium without necessarily offering a noticeable jump in quality. In blind taste tests, many consumers couldn't tell Angus burgers from regular beef of the same grade when seasoned and cooked the same way. 10. The color game in packaging. Black packaging with gold or white lettering has become the visual shorthand for premium in meat marketing. Many Angus beef products use this design, creating an upscale steakhouse-inspired aesthetic. Some even add faux parchment-style labels or butcher's cut language to heighten the sense of exclusivity. The effect is psychological. Customers perceive the product as higher quality before they've even looked at the USDA grade or price per pound. In reality, the packaging may be the most premium thing about some supermarket Angus. 9. Angus as a catch-all term. Angus branding isn't limited to ribeyes and strip steaks. Supermarkets now slap the label on everything from stew meat to pre-marinated fajita strips to frozen meatballs. This broad application dilutes the meaning of the term. Retailers understand that consumers equate Angus with better flavor and quality, even for cuts where breed makes little difference, like heavily seasoned ground beef or pre-cooked items. As long as the meat meets the minimum visual standard for Angus classification, it can carry the label, regardless of the eating experience. 8. Crossbreeding and quality variability. Crossbreeding can be beneficial, combining traits from multiple breeds to improve meat quality, disease resistance, or feed efficiency. However, it can also mean inconsistent results. While some Angus crossbreeds retain the marbling and tenderness associated with the breed, others do not. Supermarket Angus comes from a variety of sources: large feedlots, small ranches, and everything in between. Without uniform breeding and feeding practices, 2 packages labeled Angus can deliver dramatically different eating experiences, even if they come from the same store. 7. How much Angus is actually Angus? USDA guidelines focus on phenotype, physical traits, rather than genetic testing. This means cattle with just enough visible Angus characteristics can qualify, even if their actual Angus DNA percentage is low. Some industry insiders admit this is more about marketing efficiency than breed purity. After all, testing every animal's genetic lineage would be costly. But for consumers who believe they're paying for true breed-specific meat, it's a misleading reality. 6. The price premium problem. Angus beef in supermarkets often costs 10 to 30% more than comparable cuts without the label. This price gap is driven not only by perceived quality, but also by the branding costs baked into the supply chain. For consumers, the key question is whether the flavor and tenderness justify the extra expense. In many cases, especially for lower USDA grades, the answer may be no. Paying more for a USDA Select Angus steak can yield a less satisfying meal than a cheaper USDA Choice non-Angus cut. 5. The role of marbling in flavor. One of Angus beef's true strengths is its potential for marbling, invisible streaks of intramuscular fat that enhance juiciness and flavor. But marbling depends on more than just breed. Feed quality, animal age, and overall health all play a role. Some supermarket Angus comes from younger or leaner cattle, producing steaks with minimal marbling. Without those fat streaks, the meat won't deliver the rich, buttery texture that Angus is famous for, no matter how it's marketed. 4. Grass-fed versus grain-fed Angus. Angus labeling says nothing about how the cattle were fed. Grass-fed Angus tends to be leaner with a more mineral, earthy flavor, while grain-fed Angus, common in U.S. supermarkets, has more marbling and a sweeter, milder taste. Many consumers assume Angus equals grass-fed, imagining cattle grazing idyllic pastures. In reality, most supermarket Angus is grain-finished in feedlots for the last 90 to 120 days before slaughter. This system produces more consistent marbling, but has implications for animal welfare and environmental sustainability. 3. Imported Angus beef. Angus cattle thrive in many parts of the world, and countries like Australia, Canada, and Uruguay produce large quantities for export. Imported Angus can be excellent. Australia, for example, has strict quality programs for Angus beef, but it's not always obvious when the meat is foreign-sourced. Some labels bury "product of Australia" or "product of Uruguay" in small print, while the rest of the packaging screams American Angus. For consumers who prioritize local sourcing, this lack of clarity can be misleading. 2. Restaurant Angus versus supermarket Angus. Steakhouses advertising. Angus beef often work directly with suppliers to secure USDA Prime or High Choice CAB certified cuts. These steaks undergo wet or dry aging to deepen flavor, a process rarely applied to supermarket beef due to cost and shelf life constraints. That means the Angus ribeye at your favorite steakhouse is fundamentally different from the Angus ribeye in the supermarket cooler, even if both came from the same breed. One is carefully aged and selected for marbling. The other is optimized for mass retail turnover. 1. How to shop smart for Angus beef. If you're buying Angus for quality, don't stop at the breed label. Look for the USDA grade. Prime is best for marbling, followed by High Choice. Seek out certified Angus beef or other reputable third-party certifications, which enforce stricter standards than generic Angus branding. Inspect the meat visually. Look for fine, even marbling throughout the muscle. Avoid dark spots and check the pack date. And remember, sometimes a non-Angus steak with the right grade and marbling will beat an Angus steak that's lean or poorly handled.